So I've asked people to wow me and things along those lines. I've been looking for people who can use their brain and think for themselves and reason shit out and aren't clinging to the paradigms, and it hasn't gone well. And I'm tired of saying this shit. You guys are probably tired of hearing it if you've been here long term, which most people haven't. But okay, relatively short term, but just the same. It gets old pretty fucking quick. And 10 years of this, trying to do the right thing, but most people assume otherwise. And it's kind of funny. It's actually terribly funny. Um, what I should say is, why should I teach you things? Give me a reason to teach you things. But in an age where you got nothing but superficial slop in your feed at all times, someone's rattling off our master's adult fairy tales all the fucking time. You can find somebody who's not being difficult like me. And they're gonna lead you down the primrose path to nothing and horse shit. And you'll never learn a fucking thing in this life. And most people do. They'll run right out the door for that shit. Based on my candor and my demeanor, the presentation, and or the fact that I'm looking for people who can use their brains. I'm asking people to put in time and energy. Most people are just here to take. And that's how we've all been conditioned, if you think about it. Most people aren't paying attention. They don't see some of the subtle patterns, the nuance, if you will, to what our masters have been up to long term and just how far gone everything fucking is. It's spooky. It's really spooky. And that's the superficial shit. What I can teach you will keep you up at night, but that shit should probably keep you up at night too, because it's fucking dark how bad it is. Most people have bought into our masters' agendas. If 2020 wasn't clear and ever present, to paint that picture, which I go back to often because that IQ test really. And the few people who rejected that jazz, most of them didn't look into it either. They were flying by the seat of their pants and assumptions as well. Most of the ones I've talked to, they didn't look into it. In terms of what I rattle off often, how big is a micron? What is a fucking micron? Both parties, the ones that bought into it, and most of the ones who, most of the people out there who just rejected it. No, it's got to be a trap. And I'm like, yeah, it's good intuition, but you still got to fucking look into it. You still got to research. You still got to build it up unless you know that shit. And no one I've met did. And the top of that, the upper echelon, if you will, of people that I'm referring to work in the medical field. Registered nurses, doctors, mind you, a couple RNs. Who else did I talk to? Yeah, I guess the point across. But yeah, I had a couple conversations with doctors because I figured that's probably who you would hold the most stock in. And they didn't know. They didn't have a fucking clue. When I tried to talk to them about it, I mean, one of them was very polite. He's a gay male here in Portland, and he and I, we were on decent terms for the most part, but he was like, I can't do this, and he bowed out. He's like, we can't be friends anymore. And I was like, because I challenged you. And he was like, essentially. Because I'm not a doctor. And it didn't go over so well. And that was probably the highlight of all that jazz. Another one was a registered nurse. And we went back and forth. She rattled off all the shit that she is spoon-fed. She was spoon-fed and she continues to be spoon-fed in terms of, schooling, Western schooling. And she said her piece. And I mean, a lot of women do this too. It's kind of how guys and gals work when you get into an argument. Not all, but I have experienced this a lot. I mean, people are different though. I mean, I'm sure there's some gals out there that don't do this. Take that to heart too. But she said her piece. And when I presented my information, she just shut down. And after a while, she kicked me to the curb because I challenged her. And again, I'm not a registered nurse. So it's got to be insulting. Yeah. So apply what I just said with that agenda and all that shit and these interactions that I experienced to any subject matter you can think of that you've spent a large amount of time digging into. Say you've been researching fucking aliens most of your life, and you're into that shit, and you believe in that entire package. I'm still the asshole out here who will challenge you and tell you that it's fucking crap and point out why it's crap. One of the best things to look into is the Disclosure Project to begin with. Always look at the money. I mean, this is a superficial way of doing it, but follow the fucking money. And it's funded by the Rockefeller Trust and Hillary Clinton. Originally, the Hillary Clinton part, it's still funded by the Rockefeller Trust, which means it's an agenda. I mean, you have people who bash Rockefeller and Rothschild, and I've told them this. And usually what they'll do, I had one actually do this morning. What sources do you have? Cite your references. What do you got? Da, 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 da. Why don't you just look it up? The reason they're in those fucking circle jerks anyway is because they're jerks. They're not fucking looking up anything. They're not looking into anything on their own because that's hard and it takes time and energy. Like I was saying. That's why people don't know anything. And that's why that slush pile in your feed that you're being spoon-fed, that superficial horse shit, all those adult fairy tales, the narratives that our masters are shopping around, the reason that you and I have the fucking internet to begin with. That's why we have the internet. That's why you don't have to pay a premium fee to be on social media. Because our masters want you to buy into that. They want you to repeat that shit. They want you to train the AI and play the game and all that other stuff. It's got a lot of angles to it, and none of them are good. None of them benefit you and I, especially long term. And if people had foresight, they would see it, but they don't. Because they don't have the first fucking clue. The more you chip away at the things that I'd like you guys to work on, based on the stepping stones that I have spoon-fed the fucking internet for a decade now, the more you would see this and realize it. Not just kicking back and listening to what I say and saying, well, yeah, that sounds like those pieces jive with me, but, oh, he's being a bastard about that, or, oh, he's barking at us, but yeah, that does resonate. The slivers, I mean, that's how it works. People, you're going to slide some of it to one side and then to the other, and some of it you'll pick up and you might work with a little bit. The more you actually do that with all this shit, especially if you start taking notes, the more you're going to see it. What I really should say is you just might see it, and you would if you worked with it. But people don't do that, typically speaking. And or you're going to take some of the things that I have spoon-fed you guys, and when it clashes with your ideology or the paradigms that you're fucking clinging to, you're not going to kick your paradigm to the curb and consider what I spoon-fed you. Not with all your heart and intention. But if you did, then you might just see things for what they are. Because I'm not trying to mislead anybody. If I was doing that, I'd go about this in an entirely different way. And I'd be shopping around all that shit that misleads you. And I'd probably be doing pretty well financially, among other things. But it's a waste of my time and energy and yours, and I don't want to be that person. We got plenty of those already. It's fucking disgusting every time I interact with one of those accounts. And how many people are in there just sucking the day's dick repeating that shit. Because they're not thinking for themselves. They're not thinking at all. If they did, they would look into it. And the moment they look into any of this shit that these people are shopping around, it's crap. It's got holes in it. It's muddy. It's misleading. But as always, what the fuck do I know? Just making you stare at a rag rug. If you hung out, thanks for hearing me out.